The fertilizer in that bag in your garage is made from natural gas, and almost a third of the world's natural gas has to squeeze through one narrow strip of water that Iran sits right on top of, the Strait of Hormuz. When that strait gets choked, the price of the stuff that grows your food doesn't creep up. It jumps. And here's the part that should get you out to your backyard this weekend. We have watched this exact movie before, and we already know how it ends at the grocery store. Back in 2022, after the war in Ukraine wrecked the energy market, European ammonia plants went dark, and natural gas-driven fertilizer prices roughly tripled. Urea, the world's most used nitrogen fertilizer, hit record highs. And a few months later, the FAO Food Price Index, the global benchmark, hit an all-time record in March of 2022. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a chain reaction. And it's the same chain reaction starting now. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you 7 crops you can put in the ground this week. Not someday, this week. And have them on your plate before the price hike ever reaches your store shelf. I'll tell you exactly how to plant each one. I'll show you a way to grow all of them with zero synthetic fertilizer, using free nitrogen that's literally sitting in your yard right now. And I'll be honest with you about something most of these grow your own food videos quietly lie about, because only one of these 7 actually carries enough calories to move your grocery bill. And I saved it for last. First, let me earn the urgency, because you should be suspicious of any video that yells, "Food is doubling." Here's the boring, true mechanism. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer is made out of natural gas through something called the Haber-Bosch process. You take gas, pull nitrogen out of the air, and cook it into ammonia, then into urea. The gas isn't a side cost. It's most of the cost. Somewhere around 70 to 90% of what it takes to make ammonia is the gas itself. Now look at where that gas comes from. Qatar, one of the planet's biggest urea and ammonia exporters, ships everything out through Hormuz. There's no other door. So a shock in that strait doesn't gently nudge fertilizer prices. It transmits almost straight through. And fertilizer feeds the staples. Corn, wheat, rice, they're nitrogen hungry. Starve them of nitrogen, and the yields drop. That's the whole link, plain as it gets. Gas spikes, fertilizer spikes, and the next harvest of the crops that feed the world comes in thinner and more expensive. Here's why timing matters so much. Fertilizer is a lagging cost. A spike at planting time doesn't show up at the register today. It shows up months later, when that crop is harvested and trucked and stocked. According to the World Bank's June 2026 Food Security Update, urea prices are already up around 46% month on month, with global food indices up roughly 8%. The FAO warned in early April that those prices keep climbing for as long as the conflict drags on. The USDA's 2026 outlook is pointing the same direction. I can't personally guarantee every one of those figures. I'm telling you what the sources say. But here's what I can stand behind completely. The mechanism is real. The 2022 precedent is documented, and the lag is exactly why plant now isn't a gimmick. The window between the spike and the shelf is the window you plant in. That window is open right now. So, let's beat it. And here's the thing. Nobody in a panic video tells you. You do not beat a fertilizer shock by buying more fertilizer. You beat it by growing the few crops that make their own or barely need any, using stuff you already throw in the trash. 7 crops. Let's go. Number 1. Radishes. 25 days from seed to your fork. The fastest food you can possibly grow. They germinate in 3 to 5 days. You'll see green pushing up before the week is out. Direct sow the seed about 1/2 inch deep, thin them to 1 inch or 2 apart, and that's it. Now I'm going to be straight with you, because the honesty is the whole point of this video. A radish is mostly water. About 16 calories per 100 grams. It is not going to fill your stomach. So why is it number one? Because it's your fast win. It's the crop that proves to a nervous beginner that this works. You put a seed in the ground, and 25 days later, you're eating something you grew. That momentum is worth more than the calories. Plant a short row of these the same day you plant everything else. Number 2, leaf lettuce. 30 days, and here's the trick that makes it pay. It's cut and come again. You don't yank the whole plant. You harvest the outer leaves, and the plant keeps making more for weeks. One planting, a steady supply of fresh greens you'd otherwise be paying $4 a bag for. It's shallow-rooted, and it loves compost-rich soil. No synthetic nitrogen needed at all. Like radish, it's a low-calorie crop. Its value is the continuous, fresh harvest, not the calories. But that bag of greens you stop buying is real money. Number 3, summer squash. Zucchini, if you want the famous one. 45 to 50 days, and this is your volume machine. A single healthy plant can hand you 5, 10, sometimes more pounds across a season. There's a running joke among gardeners about leaving zucchini on neighbors' porches because one plant overwhelms you. That volume is the offset. You stop buying produce entirely for stretches of the summer. It wants warmth, which makes a June or July planting perfect timing. Direct sow the seeds after your last frost, and if you're tight on space, go for a bush-type variety instead of the sprawling kind. One thing the seed packet won't shout at you. Squash plants throw male flowers first, days before the females show up, so don't panic when those early blossoms drop without fruit. That's normal. The plant is just warming up. And if you ever see fruit start to grow an inch, then rot at the tip, that's poor pollination, not disease. On a cool morning, you can take a male flower, peel the petals back, and dab it into the female blooms yourself with 30 seconds of work. That little trick alone can double what one plant gives you. Number 4, bush beans. 50 days. And this is the one I've been hinting at, the crop that's the whole reason this video works. Beans are legumes, and legumes do something almost magical. Their roots host a bacteria called rhizobium, living in little swellings called root nodules, and those bacteria pull nitrogen straight out of the air and feed it to the plant. Read that back. The exact thing that's getting expensive, nitrogen fertilizer, this plant manufactures for itself, out of thin air, for free. It needs essentially no nitrogen fertilizer, and when the season's over, it leaves your soil richer than it found it. In a video about a fertilizer shortage, that is the knockout. You're not fighting the shortage. You're sidestepping it. Bush beans give you about 31 calories per 100 grams plus real plant protein. And the bush type needs no trellis. Just direct sow and let them go. There's one move that makes this work even harder, and almost nobody does it on a first planting. When you put the seeds in, don't pull the whole plant at the end of the season. Cut it off at the soil line and leave the roots in the ground. Those nitrogen-packed nodules stay right where the next crop's roots will find them, instead of getting yanked out and tossed. And here's a small detail with a big payoff. Pick beans constantly. The plant's only job is to make seed. The moment a pod swells full and the seed matures, the plant figures it's done and shuts down production. Harvest young and often, and you trick it into cranking out pods for weeks longer. If you only plant 2 things from this whole list, one of them is beans. Number 5, kale. This one starts slow, so don't get impatient, but it earns its spot by lasting. Kale is one of the most cold-hardy plants you can grow. It keeps producing deep into autumn, surviving the first frost that kills everything else in the garden, and the flavor actually sweetens after that frost hits it. There's a real reason for that, and it's worth knowing. When the cold hits, the plant converts some of its starches into sugars as a kind of antifreeze to protect its own cells. So that frost you'd think would ruin it is doing the opposite. It's seasoning your dinner. It's cut and come again like lettuce, so it feeds you for months off one planting. The harvesting rule is simple. Always pick from the bottom up, the oldest, lowest leaves first, and leave the tight cluster at the top alone. That growing tip is the engine. Protect it, and the plant keeps climbing and producing into the cold. Nutritionally, it's the real deal among the greens here. Around 49 calories per 100 grams, loaded with vitamins K, C, and A. Picture it. It's November, your tomatoes are long dead, the squash is a memory, and you're still walking out to cut kale for dinner. That longevity is the payoff. Number 6. Determinate tomatoes. And pay attention to that word, determinate, because it matters. Now you might be thinking it's too late in the year for tomatoes. It's not, and here's the workaround. Don't start from seed. Buy nursery transplants, starts. That buys you about 6 weeks instantly. And determinate varieties are the bush type that set all their fruit in one concentrated window, roughly 6 to 8 weeks after you transplant them. That's exactly what you want for an August into September harvest from a July start. The difference matters more than it sounds. An indeterminate tomato is a vine that keeps growing and fruiting until frost. Great in spring, but with a July start, it'd waste your short window-building stems instead of fruit. A determinate dumps its whole crop at once, fast, which is precisely the bet you're making this late. When you plant the transplant, do one thing the label won't tell you. Bury it deep, all the way up to the top few leaves, even if you have to pinch off the lower ones. Tomatoes grow roots out of any buried stem, so a deep-set plant builds a bigger root system in days and stands up to heat and dry spells far better. Tomatoes are pricey at the store, so the grocery substitution value is high. One honest note: tomatoes are moderately nitrogen-hungry, more than the beans or the greens. So this is the crop where the free soil method I'm about to give you matters most. Pair them with good compost and they'll reward you. Number 7. Potatoes. And this is the one I saved for last, because this is the only crop on the list that genuinely carries enough calories to move your grocery bill. Everything before this was speed, freshness, volume, or sidestepping the fertilizer problem. This is food. Here's how it works, and it's almost too simple. You take a potato, cut it into chunks so each piece has 1 or 2 eyes, those little sprout buds, and each chunk grows a whole new plant. One tip that saves you a rotted-out start. After you cut the seed pieces, let them sit out a day or two until the cut faces dry over and callus. That skin scabs the wound shut so the piece doesn't rot in damp soil before it can sprout. You plant them in trenches, and as the stems grow, you hill soil up around them, which makes the plant set even more tubers up the buried stem. That's the secret to volume, and it's why a trench or a tall tower beats a flat bed. Every few inches of stem you bury under fresh soil becomes new tuber-growing territory. Growers who hill 3 or 4 times over the season pull far more out of the same square footage than those who plant once and walk away. One more thing that protects your whole crop. Any potato that pushes up out of the soil and catches sunlight turns green, and that green is solanine, which is mildly toxic. So keep hilling and keep them covered. 100 square foot potato bed, a patch the size of a single parking space, can return on the order of 50 to 100 plus pounds in a good season. About 77 calories per 100 grams, the highest of anything here. and pound for pound, one of the most calorie-dense crops you can grow in a temperate backyard. There's a reason the potato ended famines across Europe. It produces more calories per square foot than almost anything else you can put in the ground. And unlike grain, it doesn't need a mill or a thresher. You just dig it up and eat it. If you keep exactly one crop from this entire video as your real hedge against food prices, it's this one. Now, here's the part that ties the whole thing together, because none of those 7 crops help you if you're still pouring money into the exact product that's inflating. So let's grow all of them with zero synthetic fertilizer. This is the payoff section, and it's all free. Start with the realization I promised you at the top. The best fertilizer you'll use this summer is the grass clippings you are about to bag up and drag to the curb. Fresh green grass clippings run about 2 to 4% nitrogen by dry weight. That's a free, slow-release nitrogen source. Green manure, basically. Spread them as a thin mulch around your plants, and they do 3 jobs at once. Smother weeds, hold moisture in the soil, and feed the soil as they break down. 2 cautions, because I want you to do this safely. Don't use clippings from a lawn that's been sprayed with weed killer. Those herbicides can carry over and hurt your vegetables. And lay them on thin, not in a thick, wet mat, or they'll go slimy and anaerobic on you. Next, compost. Compost replaces synthetic fertilizer because it delivers the same nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, plus all the microbial life that a bag of urea can't. Here's the simple recipe, no jargon. Mix greens, your grass clippings, kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, the high nitrogen stuff, with browns, meaning dry leaves, cardboard, straw, the high carbon stuff. Roughly 1 part greens to 2 or 3 parts browns by volume. Keep it damp. It'll heat up and break down into black gold for your beds. A couple of field notes that separate a working pile from a stinking one. If your pile starts to smell sour or like ammonia, you've got too many greens. Throw in more browns and turn it. If it just sits there cold and does nothing, it's too dry or too brown. Add water and a handful of greens, and turn it every week or 2 to feed it air. The microbes doing the work need oxygen, and a pile that's turned heats up faster and is finished in a fraction of the time of one left to sit. And remember those beans from number 4? This is where they pay off twice. Plant bush beans tucked in among your other crops, and they'll pump nitrogen back into the soil right where your hungrier plants, your tomatoes, your squash, can use it. It's called intercropping, and it's free fertility built right into your planting layout. There's an even lazier version of the same idea that nature's been running forever. It's called chop and drop. Instead of hauling spent plants and trimmings off to a pile, you just cut them and let them fall right on the soil where they grew. They rot down in place, feed the worms and microbes, and hand their nutrients straight back to the bed. Exactly how a forest floor fertilizes itself with no one buying a thing. Between the clippings, the compost, the beans, and chop and drop, a household really can grow all 7 of these crops for $0 of synthetic fertilizer. That's not a slogan. That's the honest core of this whole thing. So what does it actually save you? Let me give you a straight answer instead of a hyped one. A well-managed 100-square-foot bed, again, 1 parking space, can realistically produce somewhere around 50 to 100 plus pounds of mixed vegetables over a summer using intensive methods. At what produce costs right now, that plausibly works out to roughly $40 a month of groceries you simply stop buying. I'm not going to swear it's exactly 40 for your situation. Your soil, your weather, your effort all move that number. But the order of magnitude is real, and it lands every single month, the gardens producing while fertilizer-driven prices climb in the other direction. And there's a piece of that math the dollar figure misses. The things you grow at home are the things that get most expensive first in a supply shock. Fresh produce doesn't store and doesn't ship cheap, so it's the front line of any food price spike. The $40 isn't just $40. It's $40 of exactly the category that's climbing fastest, swapped out for clippings and a packet of seed. If you want to stretch that even further, lean into the storage crops. Radish and lettuce you eat the week you pull them, but potatoes cured and kept somewhere cool and dark hold for months, and a row of beans left on the plant to fully dry gives you shelf-stable protein you can store in a jar all winter. That's the difference between a summer of fresh salads and a pantry that actually carries you past the harvest, into the months when the price spike is hitting hardest at the store. That's the quiet thing the panic videos miss. The headline is real. Fertilizer and food really are linked, and the Gulf really does sit on the world's gas. But the answer to a fertilizer shock was never to buy more fertilizer. It's to grow the handful of crops that make their own or need almost none, with the clippings and scraps you already throw away, and to do it in the narrow window before the spike reaches your shelf. That window's open now. Pick the crops. Start with beans and potatoes if you do nothing else. One sidesteps the shortage, one actually feeds you. Get them in this week. So tell me this in 3 words or less. What are you planting first? Drop it in the comments. I read them, and I want to see who's getting dirt under their nails this weekend. And if you'd rather grow food than panic about prices, stick around. There's plenty more here to get you there.